I never know. We are live. At least I think we're live. One weird thing. Welcome to CrossPolitic Countdown. Andrew Southwick, Justin Chartree, managing editor at CrossPolitic News. CrossPoliticNews.com. You can see at the bottom of the screen. That's where you can go to find many stories that we cover and much more. Justin, I got to tell you, I never know when we go live, when this thing actually goes live. And I realize now that's why I need to just get off my duff and get the video. The intro video, because for people who don't know, when you hit go live, it sort of does the circle wheel of death for a little bit, but I think it goes live while that wheel is going. So then it's sort of like when you're taking your high school yearbook picture and you're like, are you ready? And they do it like right there. It's like that. Like, am I live? And are we on? I feel like an old man. Which button do I press? How do I set the VCR? I tell you, I'm having a crisis of all kinds of things, Justin, all kinds of things. Before I get into my woes and lamentations, how have you been, man? It's been a little bit since you've been on.
Yeah, no, I think I can relate to that. That whole monologue there. I having my life feels like high school yearbook photo. No,
yes,
we are holding it down over here. Sort of dregs of winter, right? Mid-February. So, or end of February, I forget where we're at. A couple weeks removed from a Seahawks Super Bowl, which, I got to just say, totally called that one.
You did. And here's the thing. This Seahawks team is the most disrespected Super Bowl winner I can remember. I mean, the replacement Washington Redskins get more credit than the Seahawks, if you remember that team from way back when.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not taking anything away from them. That was a cool run, and it's a great story. Watch it on America's Game. This Seahawks had the highest point differential of any team in the history of the Super Bowl era winning a Super Bowl. They dominated just about every team they played. They never lost a game by more than 3 points. I think their total losses was a total of 9 points.
8
points.
I will remember that forever.
Sam Darnold, who after his disastrous Rams game cleaned up his play and played excellent, did not have any picks throughout the playoffs. Can't say the same for our reigning MVP. Not to take anything away from him. Fantastic season, but not the Super Bowl winner. And then the stupid whining Rams, and yes, that's what they are, is the stupid whining Rams. That's what I'm going to call them the rest of my life. The Los Angeles stupid whining Rams. Oh, because they didn't get the 2-point conversion, they're whining and want to change the rules because they didn't win. Talk about petulant little children. I look forward to destroying them next year, and they can go back in next offseason and find what other rules they want to change. Like every time the Seahawks score against them, it's 2 points for them instead of 6 for us. Let's have that rule change, Sean McVay. Anyway.
Yeah, I would say the only one that comes to mind in my history is probably, was it 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Trent Dilfer-led Buccaneers. Essentially just because, I mean, that defense, Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks, like that.
Well, legit, that's the thing. Right? That defense still gets credit. And I mean, Trent Dilfer, he got hot at the right time. What about the Eagles when it was Nick Foles just a few years ago?
That's true. I
mean, that gets highlight reels because they did that Philly special or whatever the heck it was. And, Tom Brady tried it and juggled it and failed. But, they get more credit for that. That counts. Come on, give the Seahawks some love. And I hope they use that as fuel and come back. I'm looking forward to another good year. Of course, we were right into spring training with the Mariners. That's fantastic. And looking forward to that. How do you think, just real quick, I know we're talking sports. We're going to talk news just a little bit. But what do you think of the Mariners offseason? Do you think they did enough? I thought that I don't know about Donovan. I mean, I guess he's a true leadoff hitter. We definitely needed that. Letting Suarez go, okay, you're going to miss power, but unless he stops swinging at everything, you're not going to have very many hits to go along with that. So I can understand that, but I thought they still could use power to replace Polanco, and they need some average as well. But maybe they think they're going to get that from some of their prospects coming up. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about expectations, right? So how do you go into an off season where you're 7 outs away from a World Series and expecting to not just bounce back and take your division and be a contender for a World Series the next season, but move forward and advance in your as a team. And for me, it's expectation is you're not getting Kyle Tucker, you're not getting Bo Bichette, you're not getting those high price, free agents. So then it's all about making deals. And I got to say, in terms of what Dipoto did for the Mariners offseason, I mean, I love it. I think bringing in that lefty power arm and Ferrer was a fantastic pickup. And you give away, a catching prospect who may or may not be anything, special in the big leagues. And then on the other side, you get Brendan Donovan, who, like you said, true leadoff guy, career, 380 on base guy, somebody that the Mariners desperately need to make contact and get on base. And I just got to say, like, I'm a week into watching some of these games in the preseason, and I look at lineup of Brendan Donovan, Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, Josh Naylor, Randy Arozarena, and I'm like, you know what? We're all right.
We can get a full season out of Julio, have him come into his prime and play both halves, not just one or the other. That'd be a big help.
Bold prediction: Cole Emerson wins Rookie of the Year.
Emerson, I'd be all right with that. He's having a good spring so far.
Man, he and it's not just.
Are you a little worried? Yesterday. Maybe it's an attitude thing, but with Colt Emerson, are you a little worried of the same thing that happened with Kalanick?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I like the comp because it is favorable, but I like the comp of Bobby Witt Jr. More than a Jared Kelenic, because Kelenic he did not care about baseball. He was a talented dude, but really just not the headspace. But with Emerson, like, you look at how he's advanced. He went from single A last year all the way to triple A, hit 360 in triple A. I mean, the guy was crushing it at every level. So I just think he's savvy. He's mature. He seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. He knows what he wants. And I'll take that. It's going to be interesting to see if Cole Young, who was kind of like anointed last season as the second baseman de facto, prospect of the future that's getting his shot. I don't know if he'll hold off Emerson, honestly. I feel like Cole Emerson could come in, or, maybe JP Crawford, that shoulder injury just kind of lingers a little longer. And all of a sudden you've got up the middle, you've got these two shiny prospects who are starting to do some damage. I don't know.
Yeah.
Makes me happy.
Could be. Looking forward to it. I did hear a theory posited. I believe it was from Brock and Salk. I could be wrong, on the Seattle Sports 710, that part of the reason the Mariners did not make a huge splash in the offseason is because they take an approach, or at least they took the approach last year, where, okay, let's see what we need. And then just because we didn't sign them in the offseason doesn't mean we're done putting this team together, and we'll see what we need up to the trade deadline and then fill in those holes once we have a clearer picture of where the team is lacking. If that's accurate, I mean,
then that's the track record for the last 2 seasons, right?
Right.
You get a deadline deal done with Randy Arozarena 2 years ago, and then they make a run. And then you get Naylor and Suarez last year's deadline and make it to the ALCS. So,
for that matter, you still could see a Ketel Marte in a Seattle uniform before the end of the year.
I was just going to say, I think Arizona definitely seems to me like a seller at the deadline. If I'm honest.
And his price tag will change. They'll be it puts them in a different position of leverage to do it closer to the deadline than in the offseason, and it could be favorable to Seattle. We'll see. All right, let's talk some news and what's going on. First of all, State of the Union. What are your takeaways from that? Did you watch it live, or did you see clips?
Just clips. I I think for me, the first Trump State of the Union really spoke a lot. I'll be honest. This maybe it's just my season of life, or maybe it's just tempering of some of my expectations. But this middle of the Trump presidency just lacks a lot of I don't know, lacks a lot of heat for me. I guess it seems very tepid. It seems like we're not really seeing a lot of movement in any directions.
Can I offer you a theory on that? I wonder what you think. The Republicans, I used to joke that the GOP, like, we're really good at conferences, but we're not good at actually, doing things and governing. And I'm wondering if that's it, because Trump's speech, the speech by itself is a great speech, but our policy outcome, or turning the direction of America away from going into a new tech-driven nanny state, we're not seeing that direction change at all. No matter, and the Republicans have had the trifecta now a couple of different times. We've got 6 to 8 months left of that trifecta. Well, House, Senate, and presidency. I'm expecting that we're going to lose the House and the Senate, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I didn't come away confident that that anything else is going to happen. We've had a year and change, and haven't seen anything but spending bills and executive orders. So what's going to be different? And then once we get past the midterms, if the Republicans lose the House and Senate, now we're watching a 2-year impeachment parade, which, by the way, and the other thing with the Epstein, Hillary and Bill Clinton testifying, Hillary yesterday, Bill Clinton today. And of course, Bill Clinton has never lied about sex in his life, has he? So I'm sure we can trust everything he says. I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying, to my knowledge, Bill Clinton has never lied about sex, right? Am I right? Okay, anyway, sarcasm font is on. But if we're going to bring, the Clintons before for these kinds of hearings, what's going to stop the Democrats from doing the same thing, or subpoenaing Trump? Because, Trump sent pictures long ago. Yeah, Trump actually was the one that alerted the police to Epstein doing weird things, I think back in 2006 or 2009, one of the two. And then the prosecution began after that. But it wasn't Trump's call to the police that led to the prosecutions. It was other things. But Trump did say, hey, you should take a look at this guy. The Democrats are going to return the favor. So, I mean, we're just setting up. It's not just going to be a lame duck. It's going to be terribly destructive.
Yeah.
And then my concern there for 2028, if we're on defense for 2 years and our economy doesn't get any stronger, and Ukraine and Russia are still going on. Who knows what's happening with Iran? And, rumors of strikes are imminent and things like that. Just to me, this doesn't portend well for the GOP doing well in the next couple of election cycles. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is, everything is, the cycle is tightening, I guess. There's just not enough momentum in these campaigns under, with Trump being involved in the GOP since 2016. I will just say that does not seem to be enough momentum to carry through 4 years to where you gin up enough support and you carry over some of that excitement into the new cycle. And that was true in 2020. even so, I'm gonna even, like, in the Wayback Machine pre-COVID, I still remember some of the fodder that was being raised up as like, oh, here's Trump's opposition, and it's like Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and some of these people, and you're just like, really, like, this is what you have to offer, and then COVID happens, or COVID was released, or however you want to say that.
Yeah.
We have a change in the guard. And then again, 4 years later, we switch back, and 4 years later, we're going to switch back. And it's just going to keep being like this, because there's nothing sustainable about the way that we govern right now.
Well, Congress has made themselves irrelevant. And unfortunately, look, we do get the government we vote for, do we not? I mean, that's.
Yeah.
So in some ways, well, in many ways, it's on us. We're not demanding better fabric and quality of candidate in Congress and Senate. So they're not really exerting their power and allowing rule by executive order. And sure, that's within the bounds of the Constitution. And, we're finding there are loopholes and interpretations, blah, blah, blah. But part of that is, when you have, I think it was, so Trump has had 150 executive orders just in this term, 30 of them under emergency authorization powers, or these declared emergency authorization in order to perform the executive orders. Well, that's just going to, first of all those are going to get undone in a Democrat administration, but then the pendulum will swing harder. For every 150, you'll see another 175. And that's not a Trump versus whoever the Democrat is. It seems to be the way that our politics and our government is going, where it's just executive orders swing over here, executive orders swing over here. And in the middle, we just pass spending bills, continuing, recordized spending and not, but that's also our fault too. We don't want to tighten the belt and stop paying for some of the entitlements that are driving our debt and driving our spending in the first place. And until we demand that, they're going to keep that spending up too.
Yeah, I was thinking of that this morning, actually. It was very strange, kind of the internal thought process. But, you've heard probably before, our founding fathers rioted over, a proposed 7 or 8% tax. We got states where you're getting taxed, upwards of 40% of your income if you make a certain amount. We're well past the 10% threshold. I think it was because I was listening to somebody talking about tithing, and the fact that when we tithe to God, it's a tenth that belongs to the Lord, and realizing like, man, I give 10% to the God of the universe out of my increase because He's given me everything, and then I've got this parasitic government coming in and taking 15-20% of my paycheck every 2 weeks to do what with, like what we're spending how much money?
And I just did a monologue about this and from my other show, Culture Crossroads, and put it on YouTube. Everybody hated it. I was talking about taxing the rich. I don't know. It got ratioed, I guess. Nobody liked it. Nobody agrees with me that government shouldn't be taxing people. And my point was not tax the rich or not tax the rich. But that's the trope, right? We want to raise taxes, so we're going to frame it under tax the rich. But we all pay. First of all, it's not our boss or the quote unquote the rich who are taking the money out of our paychecks every week. That's the government, is it not? So, and not only that, but if you buy something, you pay taxes on it. Then when you sell it, you pay taxes on it. I mean, they get you coming and going. The government,
and while you own it, you pay property taxes on it.
Exactly. And then once you pay it off, you're paying tax on something you're not even paying for. For crying out loud, Obamacare had to be rewritten as a tax, which they claimed it wasn't. But Chief Justice John Roberts rewrote it as a tax to make it constitutionally, I guess, viable. I don't think it's consistent, but viable anyway. So, I mean, yeah, everywhere. 8% tax, we're throwing tea into the ocean. Meanwhile, we're taxed 6 ways from Sunday. We have to ask the government that at the end of the year, do I owe you any more money? Please, Mr. Government, do I? Or can I have a little bit back? I mean, we don't demand, we should be the ones auditing them every year. What did you do with the money you took from us? Right. Last I checked, it was we the people, not they the government, and us the serfs.
Do you ever wonder what it would be like? You just, you have to do this at a local level or state level or whatever. You just be like, okay, we're going to throw a bunch of people in into the state government, and we're going to say, okay, only job that we have to do is we're just going to repeal all the tax code. We're just going to say, okay,
Yeah.
you know,
There was a. I gotta look this up. Keep talking. I'm gonna look something
yeah, I
up.
was just going to say, I feel like we would not know what to do with ourselves. We would say, wait a second, how are we supposed to operate? I have all this extra money in my bank account, but it doesn't feel like my money. Like, did the government not take their money? Do I need to call somebody? How do I send them a check? What, can we do direct deposit? I don't know. There's a weird dependence that I feel like we have as a culture on, it only feels right if they're taking our money, if that makes any sense.
There was a bill just submitted. I don't remember who did it. I'm looking for it now, and whatever reason, I'm not finding it. U.S. Rep. Andy Ogles. Here, I'm going to bring this on the screen here in just a second. And I have a point to this, I promise. U.S. Rep. Andy Ogles wants U.S.-born athletes competing for foreign countries to be taxed. And he's out of Tennessee's 5th Congressional District. The act is the officially limiting yearly money procured by individuals concerning sportsmanship act, also known as the Olympics Act. We just need to make everything an acronym. I want the Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious Act. Make that into a sentence that makes sense. The bill would impose 100% income tax on athletes who compete for foreign entities. This is coming out of the Eileen Gu, I guess, is that name Gu or Jew or GU? I don't know. I didn't watch the Olympics. I don't really care. An American-born Olympic athlete who represented China in the Olympics and apparently got a ton of money. So now Ogles is putting a bill in to tax them at 100%. But here's why I bring that up. The IRS now exists to financially incentivize or disincentivize our behavior. That's what it does. And this bill is proven. He's a Republican wanting to use the IRS as a punishment mechanism, as a punishment arm. Well, that's what it is. It's a punishment arm. We're punished for doing business. We're punished for buying groceries. They use financial incentives to try to guide and direct our behavior. You're talking about undoing the tax code. But until we get enough spine to say no, enough's enough, which we won't, because the IRS does take that money on powers given to them, authority given to them by Congress, which is by powers that we gave them by voting them in. But they do that to fund all the entitlements that we don't want to get rid of, because we think government should be the ones paying for our health insurance and be the ones paying for our kids' school so that they can be indoctrinated with trans agenda. Catherine Herridge just sat down and did an interview exposing U.S. public school system. Effectively 8 million kids a year are sexually abused in the school system. So not only is it an indoctrination camp, a gender identity indoctrination camp, false American history indoctrination camp, public schools, but it's also a dangerous place set up for predators to hunt more and more. And we pay for that with our tax dollars. This show isn't about abolishing taxes, but I'm sure for it. I know we got to go to another story, but I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I'd just say, what is the worst? I mean, so it's interesting because every year where we have these, especially in the last decade or so, when we have these crisis moments where the government isn't going to be funded if we don't pass this, as you say, spending bill.
Now you're just talking dirty to me, man. Come on.
What do we feel like is the worst that could happen?
I'd like to find out.
I would, at this point,
I'd like to find out.
I have, you feel for the federal workers who aren't getting paychecks and that kind of thing. I'm sure that's, they want to support their families. But I mean, you tell me, like, what government programs that shut down are going to affect your day to day? Because I can honestly tell you, none is the answer for me.
There are government jobs. Like, I know people in the shutdown from the fall. Some people at my church, they have government jobs. They were furloughed, but they were expected to work for free on the promise that they'll get paid back. Now, that has real world effects. And there are those who are in actually, this is something else I talked about. There are unrighteous rich and there are righteous rich, and there are unrighteous poor and there are righteous poor. There are some people who are in need, not because they're gaming the system, but because terrible things have happened. So like those are things we're kind of in there, but all those people are mixed in with the rest of the parasitic side that's leeching off of all this. And so I think that there is some collateral damage we'd have to work to see if we can have a way to support the people who genuinely need support. That I think we all would say, if it's genuine, I don't think any of us are going to be like, well, no, don't do it, let them starve, or no, don't do it, let them die. No, we wouldn't say that. We're not going to deny them care, but
of course not.
We do need to figure out how to get those of us who are able-bodied and able to do things, and have us feel the effects of our, whether it's our unwillingness or whatever it might be, to pave our own roads in life.
Do you not think that the people of this country that have a heart for others would not respond in that moment? I mean, you just look at
every GoFundMe that goes on.
I was just gonna say GoFundMe, Bill Send, or no, not Bill Send. What's the other? GoFundMe,
Give, Send, Go.
Give, Send, Go. Thank you. These are, just two prime examples. People, and this isn't even like 100% of the generous giving that's done in our country. It's not even close. It's maybe a small fraction. That people are generous, and people will find new jobs. People will find, new ways around the fact that, your post office shut down. How are we going to get mail out? Oh no, we don't use mail anymore. We found other ways to do things. Yeah. There's a lot of necessity breeds innovation, and we're just continuing to push this dinosaur up the hill and expect it, not to crush us at some point.
We'll move on to a couple stories in just a second from CrossPoliticNews.com before we wrap up. But I do want to mention this. We do seem to be a society now that's using our tax system and all these means of entitlements to eliminate personal responsibility. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. It's why I'm in such a spicy mood today. So I'm on the horn with my bank to pay my landlord via an electronic transfer system, which will remain nameless but rhymes with Shell. Now, you used to be able to, in America, if there's somebody I wanted to pay and I had the money to pay them, I would just pay them the money, right? That's it. Now, that other person that I paid could be a scam artist, could be a fraud, but that's on me, right, to figure that out. Now, to protect me from fraud, because goodness knows I can't do it myself, you have a limit to how much you can transfer for like an indefinite period of time until they decide that person's not a fraud anymore, they being the powers that be in the banking system. But what? The responsibility should be mine to decide where that goes. I don't need a fiduciary nanny on that. I mean, I suck with money just like everybody else, but I do know how to pay my bills and pay my bills on time. But when your nanny state now is getting in the way of us living our actual life, it's not just frustrating. It does show you where we're headed to, where we have a nanny state growing and a surveillance and data state growing. By the way, data center, that's a whole other thing. Our data centers is the proliferation of the infrastructure for surveillance state. That's what it is. Where we're all going to either be funneled into that because we can't afford to stay out of it, or if you do make enough money, then you can buy your way out of the system, but you won't have the services. And we're being conditioned to that right now. I could go on and on and on, but man, it's just annoying that, I'm here to do a regular transaction, regular business, but because you want to protect me from fraud for something that I know is not a fraud, I can't even do regular business anymore because Nanny says no. I'll give you the last word.
With your own money. That's my last word.
Yeah. I'm not even using taxpayer dollars for crying out loud. Oh, gosh. All right. Next story here. This is from CrossPoliticNews.com. I thought this was interesting. Mayor Mamdani, as you know, the socialist, Muslim, Islam, whatever it is, socialist mayor of New York City. Government grocery stores are getting their first tech. This from a test. This from Bill Peacock, CrossPolitic News contributor. He notes, The chaotic scene unfolds in Manhattan's West Village. Hundreds of New Yorkers swarm to a pop-up, quote, free grocery store sponsored by the betting platform Polymarket. The response highlighted the raw desperation amid soaring food costs and reigning scrutiny of Mayor Mamdani's ambitious proposal for taxpayer-funded, there you go again, city-operated supermarkets. The event was meant to simulate Mamdani's vision of government-run groceries, quickly devolved into long lines, shelving matches, and empty shelves. Participants arrived before dawn for limited supplies like ground beef, Tide Pods, fresh produce, but many left empty-handed. One attendee told Fox News inflation has pushed grocery bills up 25% since 2019. By the way, State of the Union did not tell me that any of that's going to come back down anytime soon.
No.
The scene was described as desperate New Yorkers facing shortages and chaos. Mamdani said in the CBS article, this is about a public option for produce. By the way, I don't know what, very simple. Public options are never good. Would you rather use a public bathroom or a private bathroom? I rest my case. Now, supporters hail the idea as a bold fix for systemic inequities, what are those, by the way? You have to look at this and understand. Systemic, we know that's code for, well, we want to be the nanny state. Progressive leaders like City Council member Tiffany Caban have championed food access and justice initiatives in Queens. However, we just read that it ended with long lines and people running out shorthanded. Beacock closes saying fiscal watchdogs highlight the funding mechanism. Mamdani's proposal relies on raising corporate taxes to 11.5% and adding a 2% wealth tax on millionaires. Andrew Rain, head of the fiscally moderate Citizens Budget Commission, says it's a false choice because it leaves out the most important option, which is to reduce spending that doesn't improve people's lives. That's the interesting thing. We keep wanting all these government programs that keep costing more money when we could just, stop spending money in ways that doesn't matter and stop spending money on things we shouldn't.
Yeah,
as a government.
As a government, yes, and like you mentioned it earlier in the show, we get the government we vote for, and this one was an interesting test case. I think where it was the mayor of the biggest city in our nation, choosing to bring in a socialist Muslim, other words. The man has no sense in his head. I think that's pretty obvious with some of the things that he's trying to do. Your response to we have such high grocery bills is, oh well, we need to tax the living daylights out of.
We need to take more money away from the people who already don't have enough money to pay for their groceries.
Right, which is why they're raising the bill.
Make sense?
It doesn't make any sense. It is the fundamental error of every time socialism / communism has been attempted in any nation. Bill's love Bill's article here. It's kind of nice. He's usually focused in on Texas politics, which is kind of his wheelhouse, but it's nice to have him kind of reach over and grab this story out of New York, because it does highlight this is going to be another failed experiment. But I the line that you mentioned about long lines and short supply, who doesn't think USSR 70s 80s bread lines? I mean, immediately.
Well, and the first thing, it is right here in the middle of the page. The event was supposed to simulate the vision of government-run groceries. Participants arrived before dawn for limited supplies. The supplies were already limited. There's no way that's gonna feed a city. There's no way.
And it wasn't supposed to simulate. It did simulate what will happen. Yeah. It 100%. Flat out, it did. This is what happens.
It's also, and I don't mean to, it's connected. It's the same thinking, I think. My take, like this is connected, I promise. But Trump is in his big tariff fight. President Trump's all the tariffs and stuff. And part of the thinking behind that. I believe, and from people that I've talked to and interviewed who know more about the economy than I do, tell me that the tariffs were trying to, again, financially incentivize through punitive taxation. America first, build it in America, right? Or make it in America. Because if you make it in America, you don't have a tariff, right? But the problem is we're not very friendly to made in America. So there again, why a tariff is one thing. How you feel about it is how you feel about it. But why aren't we doing things to lower the burden of manufacturing in America to further incentivize that? Why does it have to be additional taxation, again, on businesses and ultimately consumers that don't have that money to begin with?
Yeah, globalism is terrible. I'll just that's my big takeaway. I look at that and I say, why does it cost me 4 times the amount? So for something that's small, made in America, local, somebody grew it in their backyard and put it together and made it into something. Why does that cost me 4 times what it cost me to buy some, facsimile that was made in Mexico or Canada or comes from South America or something like that? And you realize, we're so entangled in this. I mean, we can't stop at tariffs because tariffs is just what we're taxing for people to send their stuff here. What about, the vast quantities of, goods and produce that we send overseas from our American farmers and American, companies that build things? We're sending all that stuff overseas where they get their incentives to do that. And then, when they put it in a local supermarket, that, they mark the price up. So, we have so much, there's so much entangled here. We can't shift to made in America unless we make a wholesale decision as a country to essentially re-isolate and say, we're gonna use our resources here to feed Americans, and we're going to use our resources here to employ Americans, and we're going to stop taxing them for half their income to do that. So it requires a complete, I said repeal the tax code. It's going to take a rollback of essentially 100 years of escalating globalist pursuits in order to actually have a made in America stamp again as a country.
Yeah. And and those are not small words. It's difficult. We've become so dependent on that cheap overseas labor. Meanwhile, we're making labor more and more expensive over here, which then, and that folds into the whole immigration thing, right? Because now, even President Trump, with his deportations, which by the way are fewer than Obama before him, and so on and so forth. But he even said we just deported the criminal illegal immigrants. If they're employed in hospitality or construction or other service, we want to keep them here. He said that. So because many of those industries now, you get dependent because you're looking for cheap labor, and labor's not cheap in America. If you want to make it in America, you have to make it possible for the entrepreneur, the business owner, to be able to hire and produce in America, not just tax, not just punish that worker or that business for having to use overseas labor.
Can I just say,
yeah,
just to circle back to the original conversation we were having about the State of the Union, this is why there's so much disenfranchisement within the GOP, especially that younger base that really championed Trump and JD Vance and that whole group. That included like Elon Musk and RFK and all this stuff, because this is what we're talking about today, that rollback, that America First, that MAGA movement that really, sparked the imaginations of a lot of young Americans, has just been so much hot air. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now. And so the stuff we're talking about, it's not even on the table.
Yeah,
because Trump's just doing what was done before him.
Yeah, well, the thing, and I'm not blaming Trump. I mean, this is ongoing. This is a growing cancer in our government culture, unfortunately. Let's wrap up with a little bit something that's a little lighter. I think it's lighter anyway. Probably others will not agree with me. Earlier this week, of course, at the State of the Union, let me share the right tab. How about? Sorry that the video is running and has a bunch of ads. There's nothing I can do. What did Trump say about the U.S. women's hockey team with their White House visit? Uncertain. Can I even scroll here? Come on, friends. All right. In a February 22nd call to the team, Trump said he would invite the gold medal winning teams to the White House. Trump said, I don't do a Trump impression, so I'm sorry. I must tell you, we're going to have to bring the women's team. You know that. He said, I do believe, he said if he didn't, he thinks he would probably be impeached. Now, of course, he's making a political joke saying that if I don't invite the women because the wokesters, they'll impeach me for that. That's purely political. It's off the cuff. I don't think there's anything malicious about that in and of itself. In response, of course, the women's hockey team declined to go. The men's hockey team did go, and they were there at the State of the Union, and it was a nice moment. Let's see. USA Today said that USA Hockey said they're honored and grateful to be invited, and any opportunity to visit the White House as the team will be based on their schedules once the season ends. Rapper Flavor Flav said he would host basically an alternative celebration for Olympic medal winning women in response to the controversy. And apparently the women's team accepted that. Here's what's interesting. Rapper Flavor Flav, he has problems with women in the past. He's got issues even with violence against women that's documented. But it's purely political from, well, any team. It's purely political. The reason the Democrats keep their butts in the seats because it's political, and many of them hate America. We saw that, Rashida Tlaib, KKK, and they can't even rise to respect a widow whose husband was assassinated in the most widely watched murder in the history of the world. Whatever you think about Charlie and Erica Kirk, I mean, it just as a basic human decency can't even do that because they're woke overlords on the progressive side of the aisle. Will not allow them to do such a thing. And the same woke overlords, I believe, that kept the women's hockey team from going and receiving an ovation and being honored by their country. We've come to such a place where if it's anywhere near political ground, we have to assess it politically first before we can assess it as, well, America first. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this story a little bit this week because I thought one of the funniest aspects of this to me, and the part that's probably been lost, I saw a bunch of articles that were just castigating Trump and honestly the men's hockey team for their lack of response, lack of coming to the defense of the women's hockey team that also won gold in the Olympics. Somebody, Jerry Brewer, who was actually a Seattle Times columnist for a long time, wrote an article, basically saying, the men's hockey team had captured the hearts of Americans and then missed the moment or lost the moment, essentially, talking about the fact that, you had your chance to, I don't know, white knight for the ladies. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what moment he's talking about, but I thought was, to me, the biggest takeaway is, so they're on this phone call with Trump and he makes this joke, I'll invite you, but I'll have to invite the women or they'll impeach me. And the men's hockey team laughed. Mm-hmm. In just this very unguarded moment, this very, exuberant team, these guys, won gold. First time men's hockey in America has won gold since the 1980, Miracle on Ice, stuff we grew up on.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful story, and it gets gummed up with all this nonsense.
And it's just, to me, it's just, I love the response. These guys, they just laughed because it's a joke. It was funny. Mm-hmm. It was just like, poking the bear a little bit, poking fun at the fact that we live in such a PC culture. It's like, well, if you invite the boys, you got to invite the girls too, because you don't want them to get upset. And it was just a joke. It was funny. It was something where I'm sure he was probably, that invitation was going to be offered regardless of the comment, because, you win gold medals in Olympics and you go to the State of the Union. I don't know. But they, they saw it for what it was, and and they laughed. And to
Yeah.
me, that's a beautiful moment, right? That's
Well, I think
that's human nature that's just coming out, and it's not malicious, it's not cruel, it's not sexist by any stretch of the imagination. It's just
well,
human.
and clearly we've come, I guess, just culturally to where, if you're invited to the White House, like if Obama or Biden had invited me to the White House, I would go. I'd have a
Yeah.
meal with them. I don't have any problem with that. I'd probably have a good time. Just because I disagree with them up and down in terms of the issues politically doesn't mean we can't be human beings, doesn't mean we can't still honor the office and be civil with each other and take a moment to where, hey, you know what? On this issue, we don't have to fight. We can celebrate this objectively all together. It's unfortunate that we don't have that permeating our culture, but maybe we can start to bring that back a little bit. And of course, CrossPolitic News is going to be at the forefront of that. Justin, we got to wrap up. But here's the thing: you have a fan. I don't know if you noticed, Zhivago, watching on YouTube. I'm not sure if you're still there, but he writes, Justin, you're a hot teddy bear. I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna have to get Justin a hot teddy bear T-shirt, and we need to start doing some swag. We need to figure that out. And you know what? I'll start putting on the where it has our names on the screen. You can put Justin Chartrey and then hot teddy bear as your title next week, and we'll see if Javero comes back. But anyway, I thought you should know that your fan club is growing. So the calendar comes out a couple of months. Justin Chartrey hot teddy bear calendar. Get it while it's hot. No pun intended. Okay, thanks, Zhivago. Thanks for everybody who tuned in here on this journey. We'll be back next week with more shenanigans, both political and otherwise. Remember, you can find many of these articles at CrossPoliticNews.com, CrossPoliticNews.com. Be sure to like and subscribe on the YouTube page so you don't miss when we go live. We'll also be putting out some shorts as well, highlights from these little summits that we have here. So those bite-sized pieces will be coming out through the week. Share those with your friends as well. For Justin Chartrey, I'm Andrew Southwick. This has been CrossPolitic Countdown. We'll see you next Friday.